for that.
Yeah, that's cool of you.
All right, cool. So, since we're coming into this one a little differently than normal, would you like to tell us your type you believe it ahead of time, or do you want us to do it like normal? Or do you want to direct the
Like
conversation
normal.
somewhere? Like normal, okay.
I don't want to create any cognitive biases or dissonance when it comes to this. So, and I might be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, but I might be wrong.
Let me turn down the TV volume so we don't get as much echo on this.
Yeah, and I can also turn it down on my end so I don't pick up
Oh,
reverb.
that's not going to make any difference.
No, you're fine.
It's all on this end, whether I get echo or not.
Okay, you're not getting it. Okay.
If I do get it, it's all my problem. Okay. So, oh, we are recording. Okay, good. So, your name's SophistryDude. So, define sophistry. What do you think it means?
So a sophic argument is an argument that you make. It's has a fallacy somewhere in it, but it's built upon like actual logical arguments. A sophic argument is an argument that is very convincing, but if you understand where the fallacy is, you can pick apart the argument immediately. It falls down like a house of cards.
Okay.
Sophic.
So it's a cleverly used fallacious argument.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And do you think you're successful at doing that, or are you one who calls that out, or is it what's your relationship with that?
The name is kind of a joke because I do call out sophic arguments, but at the same time, occasionally I really enjoy messing with people. In fact, I mess with people all the time. So that's kind of the point of it. It's a joke upon a joke upon a joke, which I do that a lot. But typically, I will poke holes in people's arguments, and people make sophic arguments all the time. So it's not like I'm actively policing for someone that's making a sophic argument. I'm just actively policing for people making arguments in general, and I pick them apart.
Okay. So do you have any background in formal debate, or is this all natural street arguing?
Natural straight arguing. There wasn't a debate team at my school, so I wasn't able to.
Same here, bro.
It's a tragedy.
Yeah.
Okay. So
there wasn't a debates team at my community college that I recently went to. It sucks.
So let's say the resolution here is the U.S. ought unilaterally cut carbon emissions in order to mitigate the effects of global warming. You want half or neg?
All right, say that again. I'm doing what?
The U.S. should unilaterally cut carbon emissions in order to mitigate the effects of climate change.
Okay.
Do you want the affirmative side? Yes, that's the case, or the negationary side?
I would take the negationary side. I would say there's different arguments, different ways of going about that, and that's not a conclusive thing that we should push forward on. It's still an argument to be had. So I would take the negationary side, even though I do believe climate change is a thing, and I do believe that we are causing greenhouse.
In general, do you favor neg over af? Like, would you prefer to negate most position statements, or does it depend on what you actually believe about it?
In general, I will negate because people make a lot of strong claims, and I don't really like. I'd prefer to just start with a basis and then build up. And so I'll make some very strong claims myself, but it'll take quite a while for me to get there. And in general, I'm negationary.
Okay. And you like to engage. You go out hunting, sort of, at least. You don't go out intentionally to hunt, but you end up hunting?
So here's the thing, I'm extremely antisocial. So, and I'm even antisocial online. If I go out and if I'm out in public, the chance of me saying an actual word is actually fairly small, unless someone says something that's interesting, that interests me. And there's a lot of things that interest me. So if anyone's having some sort of dialectic conversation or is engaging in any conversation that's not about people or things, there's a really good chance I will respond to them, even if they're complete total strangers. And I'll go and actively hunt that, right? That's what I'll hunt. But a lot of times I'll just stick to myself and I'll come to the conclusion it's not worth talking to the person. So it's a mixed bag for me. If I am feeling comfortable talking to you, I'll talk to you literally about anything and push you on everything. If I don't think you're worth my time, I'll just never talk to you at all.
What aspects of your current life situation are most important to you?
Well, my relative comfort in trying to improve my health, and then in addition to that, like filling the needs I have for having more information and helping me in making better logical decisions, I guess.
Okay.
So I'm kind of like I'm basically between those two things.
Do you have a long-term plan?
No, I have a goal in mind, but there's no plans associated with it. But no, I don't have. Unfortunately, I don't make long-term plans like that.
Can you share a bit about your goals?
It would help, probably. It would probably help, but I just don't do it.
How do your goals take
Yeah,
form?
so, well, the goal that I have that's like a goal that I've kept is has to do with the point of singularity. So, as technology increases and improves, it is exponential in its evolution. And with that effect, we seem to think that we're going to be limited to things that we're limited to for a long time, and that's not actually the case. In fact, I expect fully by the time my life is over, my natural life is over, I'll be able to extend my life with artificial organs and replacing my limbs and curing myself of cancer and things like that, to the point where I can extend my life to the stage where I don't actually ever die, question mark.
You can do
Ever
that
as a
now.
human.
You can do that right now by drinking the blood of a virgin.
I do that every third Thursday, actually.
Well,
So I'm already.
it's actually the blood
You can do
plasma
that.
extracted from infants that you're looking for.
You frozen me. What's
Oh, I'm sorry. Spacey corrected me. It's not any virgin. They have to be newborns.
Yeah.
Oh,
you're doing
fuck,
it
that's
wrong.
where we're going wrong. God
Yeah,
damn
you're
it.
doing it
I'm
wrong.
sorry, guys.
Okay, well that right there is worth the
Yeah,
price
okay,
of this
so-
session.
Right.
All right, so
Yeah, thank
tell
you.
me
Thank
about
you,
your
Steve.
tell me about your
I will
model
go,
you made. Tell me about your model about cognitive functions a bit.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I want to hear about it.
All right, so in general, I think that MBTI and most systems that are built off of Kiersey's work and Linda Barron's work and even the original MBTI, like I said, most of that is I would consider a classification system. And there's a difference between the classification system and taxonomy, as you very well know. And I don't really ascribe to using the classification system because there you can kind of look at the end result and miscategorize people based off of that end result thing. So you're really categorizing not causational factors but correlative factors, and that's a definite possibility. The best classification systems are fairly good at not doing that. But in general, I subscribe to the notion of using a taxonomy instead. A taxonomy is where I break down cognition in general from the very top and go, you have introverted, extroverted, that's still up for debate. And then sensing and intuition seems to be a thing that's definitely parsed out. And I have logic arguments for those things. And then I separate intuition, feeling and thinking as interest in people or interest in things, not necessarily I'm a feeler or a thinker, because that's total bullshit. We all think and we all feel, so it's hard to do with that. So in general, I use Socionics system. I specifically have built upon Socionics Model B and incorporated some amount of Socionics Model G, and I'm creating my own system of Socionics that I call Socionics Models I, the incorporation method. And with that, I'm trying to tie in Linda Barron's thing, and I'm trying to tie in your system I would want to fix. In general, I think that people have a lot of type problems, specifically because they don't take into account positive and negative functions and the inverse and exverse, whatever, of functions. So you get someone that this is an ESTP, and you're like, okay, ESTP has TI, but the TI that they have is slightly different than the TI of, say, an INTP. And in a system that I'm building, the ESTP has the correct SI or whatever, but it has a different T function effectively. So an ESTJ would be kind of like some of those T.
So what function would
You're
you say?
breaking up a little bit.
So what function would you say you're using right now in explaining all this to us?
The function I'd be using right now when explaining all this to you would be negative TI in Socionics, and for you it'd just be TI. I'm trying to lay out a logical framework for you to be able to, for me to be able to coalesce all my thoughts into different things.
And what would be?
I would also be using intuition.
What would be an example of positive TI?
Positive TI is organization. It matches up with negative TE. So you have organization and efficiency that comprise together to create the best way of doing something. That's what that function block actually does. Positive TI is more or less efficiency, or organization rather. Negative TE is efficiency. They go together.
Why do we need to divide the two into TI that's TI and TI that's TE?
Yeah, the reason why you need to divide the two is because different people use different gates essentially. So like if I say I am the type that I think I am, and I use negative TI backed up by positive TE. Positive TE is factual information. So I use factual information to create a logical system that I can lay out. Whereas someone that is my roommate, theoretically, would have the exact opposite. He would have negative TI supporting positive TE. So he would use a logical argument to deduce factual information, and therefore go forth with that factual information he'd pull out. Because that's the thing he values more. So it really depends on.
But hold on a second. How does that differ fundamentally from understanding them as instrumental or absolute? Because of slot placement rather than different manifestations of the function.
Well, slot placement is important as well because we use all 8 of the functions, so that's very important. But I'm not familiar with the axiom of instrumentalism and absolute, so you'd have to explain it to me more for me to.
Okay, all right. Okay. I mean, I feel like I know what you are. I think Facey probably does too.
Yeah.
And it's pretty clear what you are. But let's ask you the following question because I'm thinking about it in the car. Now look, I've invented a new product.
Okay.
Currently, while ladies are tweezing their eyebrows, they are at risk for being mugged.
Oh no.
So I've invented a new product. There's a combination of tweezers and a taser attached to it. Now, unfortunately, I'm very uncreative and can think of only one name for my product, tweezers with a taser attached to it. They tell me at marketing that that's not a good enough name, so I need you to help me come up with 5 possible names for my product that'll help it whiz bang sell.
Eric's Twig Tasers. Let's tase and tweeze. Let's see. I'm going to shock you with all these tweezings. The shock and pluck.
The tweezer, of course.
What's that?
Wazzer.
The tweezer, of course.
The tweezer, yeah. That's like the mixture of the two. I think is good, but I like the play on words a little more than that.
I mean, I love your. You'll be shocked by how much tweezing I do, or something. Whatever that was.
Yeah,
that's hilarious. Okay, I got to smoke part of a cigarette. Spacey, I think we can both. It's pretty obvious what type you are, right? Do you and I disagree at all?
ENTP, right?
Right, you're an ENTP.
Yeah,
right?
you're an ENTP.
You're an ENTP, obviously.
Yeah. So there's a big this is a big debate between my roommates and I. My roommate is definitely an ENTP, and I'm either an ENTP or an INTP. The problem is that I'm so introverted in so many facets of my life and also the dichotomies kind of show that I'm an INTP. So that's the conclusion that we came to, but it's easy to type me as an ENTP because I'm very outgoing, things like that.
Okay, well, I mean, look, we didn't do a lot of digging to verify that you're not you're not displaying ENTP right now, but have a INTP quality to you. So far, I'm not getting the kind of careful relationship with your own moisture that I tend to get with INTPs.
Yeah.
I just don't see that 8 slot FI coming through at all, but I'm not necessarily good at identifying it. Let me smoke this cigarette and leave you in the capable hands of Spacey
Yeah.
for a few minutes.
So,
Okay.
Can you walk me through? Let's say when you were 6 years old, what were you like, and what would other people say you were like?
When I was 6 years old, I was very outgoing and cheery and bubbly and kind of aloof.
Mm-hmm.
In general, people would say that I was very smart, and they would say I was very nice to me. I was a gentleman, as they would
Okay.
say when I was a kid that age. I was very mindful of people's everything.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I've had kind of a fucked up childhood ever since then, so things
Right.
get a little iffy with that. But
Well, it's
yeah,
all right. So let's jump ahead to 14, and I'll ask you the same question.
14, they would say that I probably autistic, maybe Asperger's. They would assume that I am very intelligent based on how much I read, and they would assume that I am very antisocial because I was. That I'm not very good at sports because I wasn't. That I have a bunch of bad habits I've built up because I was heavily overweight. Those would be things people would assume of me. Myself, those are all fairly true, although I don't feel like I really had the weight thing under my control at all, but whatever.
What'd you
By that
spend?
time, I was very interested. So go ahead. Sorry.
What'd you spend a lot of your time doing at that time, like your free time?
I read a lot. I read fantasy books a lot and a lot of science fiction books
Me
and
too.
stuff like that. I think I've read every R.L. Stein book. I've read most of, well, not most because it's come out lost since then. I had read a lot of Stephen King books. I've read the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone probably 50 times. Harry Potter and the and all the way through like Harry Potter number 6. I'd read at least 20 times each. And about that time is when I was turning 18, 17, and I had devolved completely into being a Magic player. That's the other thing I did a lot when I was a teenager. Is I played an incredible amount of Magic: The Gathering,
Oh, okay.
and got very good at that. In fact, I became a semi-professional Magic: The Gathering player.
Oh, cool.
Top 8 in G as an 8. So, yeah, in general, people would see me as the antisocial kid that was alone during lunchtime. I skipped out a lot of classes. I dropped out of high school in my junior year, the middle of my junior year.
Okay. Were you bullied at all?
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay.
I was bullied all the time
For being fat or for other reasons?
for being fat for the
Okay.
most part. When I was in 8th grade, this kid was bullying me. He was like walking right behind me and just saying shit to me. And I just turned around, and I'm a bulky dude.
Yeah.
And I've lost 100 pounds since I was at my heaviest. So
Good job.
I was a large dude. So I just turned around and used all the centrifugal force of turning around and punched him in the face and knocked him out. Ever since then, I was ignored instead of bullied, which,
Mm-hmm.
to be quite honest, is probably worse. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess as an INTP, I guess I'll stop you right there and kind of give you a bit of a contrast.
Sure.
I guess.
Yeah.
When I was like 6 years old, or little, I was very quiet. I was actually kind of a dick to people. Like I hadn't learned how to care about anyone's feelings yet.
Yeah.
Like if someone didn't know what I knew, I just called them stupid or something, and that was it. Over time, I got bullied a little bit, but I never would have actually tried to hit anybody. Taking actual action to, for example, actually punch somebody or to actually get into like Magic the Gathering semifinals is not really something that I ever would have done.
Yeah.
I'm much more passive than that.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you the chicken and rooster question. So in England, there's this chicken who lived in a flock of hens. And one day her ovary got damaged. And after her ovary got damaged and she couldn't lay eggs anymore, she gradually turned into a rooster. She grew a little bit bigger. She grew rooster-style feathers instead of chicken-style feathers. She began cock-a-doodle-dooing. She acted like a rooster in terms of protecting the hens. In other words, when there was a hawk there, she'd stand up on her hind legs and go, cock-a-doodle-doo. This chicken would. And in all ways, the hens respected it as a rooster. And, when it would cock-a-doodle-doo, they'd go hide like they're supposed to. And it did everything but mate with them. Now, was this chicken a chicken? Was it a hen or a rooster?
I mean, baseline it's still a hen. You may classify its actions and then determine it's a chicken, it's a rooster from then, but it's still a hen.
Okay. So, you took a definitive stance on it. That's typical of TI tool use rather than TI DOM. But it's not definitive. It's consistent with TI tool use instead of TI DOM. It's not definitive though. So, let's talk about FI a little bit more.
Okay.
When you dangle your tenders, do you dangle them into your dampness?
I don't really dangle my tenders. When
Okay,
I
so
do,
you keep them safely tucked away?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, if you were to have a yard sale and you were to sell a bunch of stuff at the yard sale, how likely are you to realize after you sell it, like you're, I wish I hadn't sold that thing. I really like that thing.
I don't have attachments to things like that. In fact, I give a lot of my stuff away in general. I give rid of a lot of my stuff, and I don't have attachments like that.
What
So
are
if
you
I came
attached
to
to?
the conclusion, if there's a information came in later that like maybe determined that it's a bad idea to sell this thing, then sure but it's not emotional in the slightest.
Let's say you have a kid who comes home, they've been bullied at school. What do you tell them?
That's a good question. Depends on how they're bullied, and then in general, I try to tell them,
I'm going to give you more details. Let me give you more details.
Sure.
So your middle school age child comes home and says, a bully at school today stole my lunch. I was upset about it. I told the teacher. The teacher was very busy. She kind of shooed me away. Said they'd maybe deal with it later, but they never did anything. And the bully smirked at me later and at the end of the day.
So the bully just stole my child's lunch money.
The lunch itself.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
She'd already purchased the lunch.
Yeah. They didn't like. They weren't derogatory in a real sense. They just were just taking this stuff or their stuff rather.
Well, no, they said a few things. They said, unpopular girls like you don't need food.
I would try to make sure that she felt like that wasn't a thought process other people have of her, specifically me, and then I wouldn't really console her that much. I would contact the school and say, hey, this is the thing that happened. But unfortunately, I would probably try to take her mind off of it. That's probably what I would do.
Okay.
I'd do something to take her mind off of it.
Now, your wife walks in, she says, Julie, remember, it is important that we keep in mind what was that bully going through? What kind of hardship is she going through that she needs maybe that lunch more than you do? You don't know what happened to her at home, okay? Her experience is important here too. Let's not be too harsh. How do you respond to your wife's comments there?
I would, in front of the child, I would try to twist them into like a lesson that I would kind of want the kid to take away from that. And I would emphasize that child has agency and determinism. They have the ability to make the actions for themselves. But so that's not really a conclusive thing that I would go off of. And I'd try to phrase it that way.
SophistryDude! Sophistry, quit undermining my parenting! I'm trying to teach our child empathy. Empathy for those who victimize others.
Look, Lucy, I'm not trying to undermine your parenting. I'm really trying to go through this process of teaching our daughter that empathy is important, but you need to also have self-respect. And having that self-respect and understanding that person also needs to have their own self-respect and teaching
Why do you always shit on me like this? You're always yelling at me. You're always talking down to me like this. Listen, what I'm saying is that
I wouldn't deal with that person.
child too. I said, Darren, SophistryDude, or whatever your name is. I'm leaving. I'm
I
taking
wouldn't deal with
Julie
that
and I'm going to the motel. I'm gonna call up some personal ads from Craigslist tonight and fuck the shit out of a bunch of dudes.
Say, okay, have
Blew
fun.
it. You blew it. In that scenario, you completely blew it, SophistryDude.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Okay.
That's the thing is that I wouldn't be with that person in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, you poured it on a little too thick, Eric.
Do you think he's
yeah, like
bipolar? Or
way
you
too
can't tell
thick.
No, you can't tell from that.
yet? Okay. I mean, but what do you think? What's your vibe on him? Is he bipolar?
I can't tell.
All right. How are we gonna figure it out then? INTP is tough to
Okay.
tell apart.
Well, how about this? Do you like music?
Compared to the average person, no. Compared, like in general, yeah. Most people think that they love music, and then you compare them to everyone else, and you're like, oh, you like music. I like music too, but I'm not particularly attached to it in a sense.
Okay, well,
What's a medium
Yeah.
that you think that you do have a lot of opinion about? Do you have a lot of opinion about music, regardless of attachment?
When I listen to music, I like fast-paced music. I like different variations of rap and rock and stuff like that, EDM, all that nonsense. And I can be critical of these things, but in general, I don't hold strong opinions of really anything.
Any medium? No medium of art that you are more actively critiquey about than any other?
If you ask me my opinion on movies, I will pick a movie for you. But in general, I can literally put on my idiot face and go and watch a movie and have fun.
If I said
This hasn't always been the case, by the way.
if I said to you watch 5 movies and tell me which one is best, would you be able to do so?
Watch 5 movies and tell you which one is best.
Yeah.
I can watch 5 movies and tell you. I wouldn't give you a strong answer, first of all, but I would probably, if there was like clearly a movie that I preferred more than those, I would talk about how I preferred that movie, but I wouldn't conclude that movie was best at all. If you ask me to what 5 movies would be best for you, and I can kind of figure out what your preferences are, then I will rate the movies based off of that preference that you have. And then I will give you a different list than my list potentially would be.
Okay, so do you think that it's never the case that some movies are simply actually objectively better than others, whether you can prove it or not? Or are you more on the lines of beauty's in the eye of the beholder?
Okay, so I will actively go out of my way to say movies like the prequels in Star Wars are total trash. And there are movies that are like absolute trash. So if you're talking about like what this movie is clearly garbage, first of all, I probably won't watch it ever. I'll probably come to the conclusion through whatever means I do that I'm not going to find the movie particularly good, and I just won't waste my time. And if I do watch it, there are definitely movies that are better than others. And if you have movies that are categorically similar, I will compare them and say this movie is a better movie than this other movie. But in general, I won't really necessarily critique for you unless you ask me to. But yeah, some movies are trash. Some movies are bad, and I just don't want them.
How do you do with the ladies?
Fairly poorly, but in general, that's because I don't talk that much unless we're talking about something that is like, I hate to say the word intellectual, but if you're talking about people or things, I don't give a shit. So I don't talk about that stuff. And in general, I have a severe lack of confidence, and I stick to myself a lot. I spend the vast majority of my time alone. In fact, this is the most talking I've done in like 2 weeks.
Okay.
You don't seem to lack confidence.
Yeah, but you're not. Obviously, you're not like you don't seem to have a severe social anxiety or anything. Like you're not afraid to talk to people.
No, I mean I have general anxiety disorder, but when I'm talking to someone like you about something that specifically interests me and I know your position on it, I don't have a problem talking to you. I don't have a problem talking to anyone. I can talk to the President of the United States. I can talk to any person on the planet. I don't have a problem with that. The problem I have with is assuming that you have a position that I would have to use in order to go forward. So if I that's specifically involved with women or people I'm attracted to, if I'm attracted to someone and I've been talking to them and I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, I'd actually be interested in having some sort of relationship with this person or going to a date, I probably would never pull the trigger still. And if I did, you would have to literally like be like presented like, Nick, that's my name by the way. Nick, I really find you awesome and attractive. Blah, 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 whatever the fuck. You'd have to like literally sell me on the idea before I will come around. So when it comes to relationships, I'm fairly poor at it.
Man, I had that exact experience after my marriage to Candace. There was this woman associated with the channel who wanted me to get on her, right? But I wouldn't believe it because she was very attractive. And so I just refused to believe it. And I actually made her say the words, "Yes, Eric, I want to have sexual intercourse with you." Before I'd continue the conversation any further. I wanted to be absolutely clear.
Damn, she sounded like a keeper, man. She really just said it for you.
But she understood that I didn't believe her.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Are you teasing me or something? Look at you. There's no way in hell you want to fuck me.
So, have you ever had a girlfriend before, or?
Yeah, I had a couple of girlfriends when I was in high school.
Okay.
But they were fairly short-lived, and yeah, whatever. Since then I really haven't. I've been fairly alone.
Okay, so you need a woman. That's what it boils down to. Listen, I had 4-year stretch of complete woman freeness from the end of college until I was like 25 or 26 or whatever. And what happens is extroverted intuition doesn't stop working. It still keeps generating new meanings out of the ongoing state of what you perceive as failure, ultimately. And so, what do? What do you have to generate ideas about? Your own ontology. And so you just start to be like, well, I'm not somebody that women would be interested in or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Self-deprecation is a common thing for me.
Yeah. And you start absorbing the identity of not reproductively viable.
Yeah. It's interesting because on one hand, my family has pretty good genes, and I'm venture to say that I'm fairly intelligent, so I have some measure of good genes in that sense. But clearly, the sexual selection process hasn't fared well for me. So I have totally not developed, but ingested that notion. I am 29.
Okay, so you gotta understand something. I'm 48, and like everything in my life changed when I was like about 42, 43, something in there. I've had at least two full lives between 29 and 48, and shit changes dramatically. Maybe shit changes somewhat because of this video. Even we start to get the concept that, oh, I should do what Eric's doing. I should make a channel. I've got all kinds of ideas I want to talk about. I should just do it. And you start doing it, you know? Do you have a channel right now?
I started a channel, and I have like 35 videos to explain my system, and I haven't made it to a PowerPoint, stuff like that. The production quality, I want to redo it. And so
But don't scrap what you have. Redo.
We'll redo it later once you've developed it a little more, you know?
Or just keep making videos. Don't try to have it be anything right now. Let it be what you ideating externally. You need the chance to ideate externally and to actualize externally. Each piece actualized externally. What does that mean? It means we will be shaped by our successfully intuiting which FE things that we pick up on we ought internalize and learn from, and which we ought reject. So it's like we want to understand which critiques of us are legitimate and which praises of us are legitimate. So we become expert at intuiting how the FE we receive, what it means. And we, as a consequence, shape ourselves to the FE appropriately. We're not swayed by bad FE, by ill-intentioned FE, because we were able to intuit it out as such. we are swayed by well-intentioned FE, or whatever you want to call it, because we do want to become more polished. And as you become more polished, the other thing is our self-concept lags way behind other people's concept of us. Way behind. So it's like, I was told by friends some years ago in the channel, like, Eric, you have to own this a little bit. You can't be so egalitarian that everybody's equal and everybody can be whatever, and it's like that's some sort of nice utopian whatever it is, but you're not doing anybody any service. There's lots of people in the world who prefer to receive some sort of leadership. Not everybody, but lots of people do. And or they expect, and it's reasonable for them to expect.
Yeah, and unfortunately... Sorry, you're lagging a little bit, so I thought you would stop, but you didn't stop. Go on.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. What do you think about that?
Well, in general, I tend to adopt principles when it comes to things like that are hard and fast, like political principles that I've come to the conclusion of. And so, like, I'm very egalitarian in that sense. And I don't like leading people. I don't like telling people what to do. But I also will look at what someone's doing and say, okay, this is not the thing that you should be doing or whatever. Not should, but this is not the best way of doing the thing that you're trying to do. When it comes to FE stuff, I find that due to my childhood, I'm pretty good at picking up on small, slight social cues and like people's facial expressions, and I'm very quick to turn that into concern. And when I was a teenager and younger, I ended up I had a lot of judgmental things, and being so judgmental, I don't really like it, and I ended up kind of curbing that. So nowadays, if I am going to have a negative opinion on something, I typically I'll process it and then file it away as in like, okay, this person's living their own life. I'm not going to judge them further for it. And so that leads me to only looking at those the positive FE or whatever it is you're trying to say, the beneficial FE in general. So as far as like your thing, that here's one of the problems with this is that INTPs and ENTPs are very similar. I'm not sold on me being either one. I don't really care. The whole point of the system is that be taxonomically correct, not to be classified, not to be correct in the way I think I'm correct. That goes against the entire thing. So if what you're saying is true, or that's the correct conclusion, and that's the conclusion. Excuse me. So, anyways, those are my opinions on that.
You seem like an ENTP to me.
Okay.
And here's why. It's I would say the childlike part of you is younger than would be with an INTP. INTPs and ENTPs are both childlike. ENTP's childlikeness is younger.
Yeah.
And we're more vulnerable in some way. Now, INTP may actually end up suffering more to some extent. It depends, but I know how vulnerable ENTPs are. We're extremely vulnerable because, we're reliant on the affirmation and agreement of others for everything. I just concluded a relationship in which I couldn't get agreement from my partner about things, and that she didn't want to formally agree to things. I tried to keep stressing her. It doesn't even matter what you do. Just agree with me on these statuses. She just wouldn't do it. It drove me absolutely insane. So when you're somebody who requires the agreement and affirmation of others, then there are times in life when you feel empty because your expectations of what that looks like and the reality of what you're getting differ, and there's not a lot of inner soul left to take solace in or something.
Yeah.
Does that ring true with you?
It's 14 points.
I don't know
What did you use?
A lighter.
So here's things where I want to like actively not not fall victim to cognitive biases. And we're just whatever. I don't want to like actively use the knowledge I have that each type doing their thing. And with that, I'll go against what I think is common for both of them. Is I'll actively push against someone that's I guess you could say being FI like obtrusive. I actively push against that quite a bit. But I will also shut down when it comes to FI. So if someone asks me a question, if I'm in a conversation with someone and it turns into like an FI conversation, I will formulate a quick answer, try to like satiate their FI thing, and then go back to what I want to, like the framework that I wanted to use for the conversation, or I'm comfortable using for the conversation. So maybe I'm not fully comprehending exactly what you asked.
So you want to just deflect away from that kind of stuff?
Yeah, in general, if you go into an FI conversation, I will have the conversation with you, but I want to get back to the axiom that is not FI. Like I don't really want to be discussing like, and my interpretation of FI might be a little differently than your guys's. I have definitions for all these setups that they're slightly different, slightly like I wouldn't say deeper, but just they pull at something that's not like.
So what are you referring to when you're talking about FI? Are you talking about putting yourself in somebody else's shoes? Or are you talking about valuing, specifically finding something precious, such that if it is gone, you feel a sense?
Well, he has a definition, so why don't we hear it?
Yeah, I'm asking him giving him some things I would like clarification on. Go ahead.
Yeah, so FI is not putting yourself in other people's shoes. Everyone does that. That's just being a human. That's feeling in general, right? So my definition for FI is the ethics of society. And by society, I would define that as everything from the all-encompassing, all species, the entire planet, the entire universe, all the way down to the singular or the group. So group her, community, village, society, civilization, so on and so forth. Right?
That's not a cognitive function, though, right? That's not a cognitive function.
Yeah.
That's a topic.
Because what I'm talking about is the ethics of society.
What?
Society is I'm talking about the ethics of society. So
I know that's not a cognitive function, though.
Yeah.
It's not a way of paying attention.
Explain what I mean.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, it is. Let me explain it real quick. So what I mean by the ethics of society is I mean the rules in which you take in place by looking at the justice of it. So like if I'm in a group, and I'll explain by an analogy. If I'm in a group and someone is or there's a group in general, and someone is a new person, someone that I haven't established any real rapport with, and they're kind of jovially having fun, poking fun at my friend, but they're not being so bad that it's causing other people to like push back against them. The FI person would look at their relation with their friend and their relation with a new person, and they might come to the conclusion that what they're doing violates their feelings, how they feel compared to with the other person, and therefore respond in a manner that is like, hey, stop doing that, stop talking to my friend like that, go away, or something like that.
Okay, so comparing how much one values A versus B, and citing the thing you value more, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so like that's
definitely part of FI.
There you go. Okay.
No, I agree. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that I have FI being more specific. But that's not necessarily true. That's the thing.
Okay, so what part of give me another part of FI that you think differs from our understanding of FI? So far, the first thing you said does match up with our understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the putting myself in the shoes of others is that's not FI. That's just F in general. Like FI person will put themselves in the shoes of an FI person. Okay, but same with everyone else.
Hold on a second and hear me. Hold on a second and hear me. So let's say there's a decision that needs to be made. And the decision is, should I say you are wrong because meh, or should I not say you are wrong because meh, as is the instance here. Now, if I cared about your feelings, if I was an FI user, because remember, FI and TI are the alternatives, not FI and FE, although they are also alternatives. If I were an FI user, if I were a TI user, which I am, I'm going to say, no, I'm going to correct him because he's wrong, and that's how I'm judging whether or not I should correct him. If I were an FI user, I'd say, I'm worried about his feelings. I'm considering how would I feel if somebody corrected me in this situation, and therefore I'd be worried about the feelings. You can't do both. They're exclusive of one another. One is an interested calculus, and one is a disinterested calculus.
For sure, yeah. Well, I mean, if we're talking between the two, that kind of goes away from the definition of FI. If you're talking about the definition of FI being take people's feelings into account, FE is taking into everyone's feelings into account in the situation,
Yeah, but
whether or not you're
those aren't ways of paying attention. See, what I'm
What's
talking
that?
about is FI is a way of deliberating and making decisions that an individual uses. They use an interested
Sure, yeah.
calculus in their own head to consider something rather than a disinterested calculus. The things you're talking
Sure.
about aren't ways of paying attention.
I'm differentiating between FI and FE. That's all I'm doing. I'm not trying to do any more than that.
Okay,
As far
well, that's fine.
So if you're going to judge me based off of ethics or something like that, I vehemently disagree with the notion of doing that.
So,
But
judging you
if
on
you
what?
cross
On
that
what?
pri-
Wait, hold on. Go back a second. What were you saying?
If you're going to judge me or anyone else based off of an FI principle, I'm going to vehemently disagree, unless you cross a principle that is kind of set in stone, and there aren't many of those.
Hold on, though. Hold on. Remember, FI, GITE, all the functions, they are not principles. They're not values. They're
No, I
not
know.
subject areas. They are ways of paying attention, first and foremost. Now, they may correlate with those other things,
I mean, there are
but
ways of
they are,
thinking.
first and foremost, manners of attention.
Okay.
And they gain what they are as exclusive of what they are not based on the way that these inherent manners of attention have exclusivity with each other, as I just indicated with the TI and FI thing. FI is distinct from TI because of the ways in which it is exclusive of TI. Similarly, TE and FE, if I am focused on a dynamic system that's in the physical world and not a dynamic system that is a human one, so in other words, if I'm figuring out the logic of a specific dynamic physical system, such as how a vacuum cleaner works, I attend to that task, paying attention using extroverted thinking, because that's how one manages the logic of specific but dynamic systems. Actually, a vacuum is not dynamic, it's static.
Oh, uh-oh.
You're gonna,
Okay, let me refresh. Can you refresh too? I think the TE,
you left me with the vacuum.
but he's smarter than Conk.
He's smarter than Conk, but he reminds me of Conk.
But he's got the same sort of attachment he does, yeah. Huh.
All right, welcome
Okay.
back.
Are we better? Can you hear us?
Just there, you Voltroned out a little bit.
Okay.
Try again.
Can you hear us now? A, B, C, D, E,
Yeah,
F, G? Okay, cool.
Yeah, you seem to be fine now.
Okay, so let's talk about kinds of information. What's more important?
Sure.
Empirics or reasoning?
I would definitely say reasoning is more important. But if your reasoning is flawed, it doesn't really matter. And I don't really trust a posteriori knowledge. So empirics, I don't really find a lot of importance in that, unless you can back it up with reasoning. So reasoning.
Okay, let's say I were going to give you one of 8 possible frames of decision making. We should choose the thing. Yeah, they're going to be all 8 functions represented here. We should choose the frame of decision making on this issue of public policy. Should we make that frame of decision making one of singularity? Find the argument that should win is this is the single best and only truly viable course. Should the argument that wins be this is the only truly new idea here that has the potential to do something that's never been done before? Should the argument that wins be this is the only one that is consistent with all of our social mores? Should the one that wins be this is the one that most people don't have any problem with and everybody agrees on? Should the argument that wins be this is the one that we've used before and has worked before? Should the argument that wins be this is the most efficient way to get it done? Should the argument that wins be this is the one in which everybody's feelings are respected the most? Or is that us or the him?
I think it's him.
Efficient way.
I think our internet's alright.
Yeah, it seems to be fine. I think it's you. It's a little bit choppy on the internet, but we're not entirely sure. It might be us, but I think it's you.
You're disconnected from the chat room.
I
It's
know.
not me.
I just refreshed because it said to me that you were disconnected.
Okay, so maybe it's appear because
It probably tells both of us that. I don't know.
yeah, probably.
Okay.
So, you left off at the efficiency one. That's the last one I heard.
Okay, and then the one after that is the one that everybody is. It keeps everybody's feelings in mind the most. Keeps everybody's moisture in mind. Okay, or the argument that says, well, we just need to do something real quick, so let's do this.
So, in general, I think the first one is the one that's the least indemnifiable of all of them. Depends on the society you're talking about, because if you're talking about if everyone is comprised of my values, they value the same thing as me, maybe I'd say the first one. I don't even remember fully the first one, but the other ones are like clearly no. But if you're talking about society as a whole, I probably would prefer if that one's not viable. I'd probably prefer the one that keeps everyone's opinions or everyone's being okay with as the number one thing, specifically because of the society that we live in. I don't agree with there was the moistness one that was right before, keep everyone's opinions in mind, and there was the moistness one you said at the very end.
So you say keep everyone's opinions in mind and singularity or the truth, the single best way.
The singularity is the one I would choose for myself, and then I probably would choose keep everyone the one that everyone is okay with, as many people as possible are okay with for society, but for singularity.
So here's the thing, in my my understanding of cognitive functions, the third and fifth slot are your two, 1, 3, and 5 are your absolute values, which means that you feel paid off when you have 3. And for an EHP to feel in a dark place, maybe depressed or despairing, they're not getting enough affirmation from other people. They're not getting enough socialization with other people. They're not talking enough. They're not being valued for their talking enough. And that, I believe, is what's happening with you. But regardless, 5, NI, is the absolute value we apply towards the external world. So when I ask you that question there, you say first 5, because it's external matter, so that would make sense. The next one you said is 3, which is your own absolute value, because you realize you can't do anything or take any choice here that is very unpopular, because you don't want to take the heat, fundamentally. It's an ontological allergy to it we have. I mean, we can take some heat, and we will take some heat, right? Yeah. But if, in general, the mass opinion is against us and stays against us for a stretch of time, and we don't think that we're going to be able to ride it out and win the long-term battle, we'll cave and throw ourselves on the mercy. So, and that's fine, because we should, probably, if there's that much opposition to it, right? Regardless, those answers are definitely consistent with what I call the value matrix, which talks about how each of the slots represents a different kind of directionality within the value system of a human being. Namely, that some things in life make us feel good about us, some things in life make us feel good about other things, some things in life we use to solve problems but don't make it feel good in and of itself. It's just instrumental, right?
Yes.
So I say you're an EHP. I feel quite confident about it.
I'm pretty confident about that at this point.
Yeah, you say a lot of TE style stuff, but I see this as frustration. Like, you are going through life thinking hard about shit, coming up with lots of ideas, wanting to express those ideas, not finding an audience, not finding an environment that makes you comfortable seeking and developing an audience necessarily, although you're doing it anyway. Having internalized a bunch of limiting narratives and self-doubt that you ought not have internalized, that is half self-created and half response to an environment that wasn't as conducive to any EHP's well-being as an environment should be. It never is. And so it's like, the thing is, what we have to learn as EHPs is something that you've apparently learned to a certain extent already. One thing is vulnerability. You both seem to already have learned that. You understand how to just be honest about shit. But the second thing is affirmation. That we've got to use our language to affirm the good and come to understand it in the right way. Now, coming to understand what the good is in the right way takes some time and development because it's a tricky question, hard to answer without leading people astray sometimes because of the way words work. But ultimately, ENTPs who develop faith in something attain a wholeness of self that ENTPs that don't develop faith in something don't ever attain.
Yeah, it seems to me that whatever makes you look like an INTP is probably mostly just maybe some things that happened earlier in life, and whatever kind of a situation you're stuck in now. I don't know what you do for work or whatever. Like, do you get out of the house much?
I mean, when I'm in school and when I have my company, then yeah, I get out of the house a fair amount. I DM 2 or 3 times a week.
Oh, okay.
And that's the most social interaction I get.
What does that mean?
He plays Dungeons and Dragons or something.
I'm the head. I'm the
dungeon
DM
master. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, I know the expression. I just didn't know.
Right.
Okay.
Which is an any paradise. It's fucking great. I would highly recommend.
Here's the thing.
I would never DM.
Every ENTP, ultimately, needs what I have, which is the opportunity to be the expert of a community of people without being autocratic about it, right? So it's like, I'm the expert, but I accept that I've got targets on me. And people like you are going to come and tell me I'm wrong and take their shot. And everybody's welcome to, So it's an egalitarian kind of being the expert. It's not like a C.S. Joseph kind of being the expert where let's dismiss people because they're not the expert. That's ridiculous. Yeah. But what we want is other people to respect us, to like and respect us, ultimately, and to perceive us as both competent and warm. We have an easier time attaining the competence one, so we can get a little toxic in our competence displays if we don't attain the warmth part.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I've been conflicted with this notion of between the two, and like I said, I don't really care either way, but I have a roommate that actually introduced me to Myers-Briggs Socionics stuff 2 years ago, or reintroduced me, I should say. And he's like a quintessential ENTP, and there's a fairly stark difference between the two of us. And then when you take into the reading dichotomies, like that's what it pushed me towards saying, okay, I'm an INTP. Is those dichotomies clearly indicated that, but that doesn't necessarily.
What are those dichotomies saying?
What's that?
What are those dichotomies saying?
You'll just have to look up the reading dichotomies. I'll type it in here.
Okay, but listen, here's the problem with those. Let me I'm familiar with them.
Yeah, for sure.
But the point is, that's not a way to identify your type. Typing somebody should be a process analysis. In other words, every cognitive function is a way of paying attention. It's an activity inside someone's brain. Okay, so we have a tendency, because we speak of it as though it were an independent tool within somebody rather than an aspect of an expression of their being, that we can get lost in the metaphor sometimes. But ultimately, the idea of cognitive functions is one of modeling how information moves. I either put information, I get information, I receive information, or I interface with some complex system that requires this constant back and forth of putting and getting information. So, look, the thing is, understanding that those are the building blocks of modeling consciousness. It's the same way we have the internet built, right? Is model that notion of objects taking action on fields, and what the grammar of the field is, what the number of vectors are that can be actions taken within that field according to that grammar, and the objects being taken upon. Mm-hmm. So understanding the functions then is about understanding how attentional manners express vectors on a field towards or about objects. And to meaningfully model cognition, then you need to have two fields, one a physical world and one a metaphysical world. And there need to be two locuses two loci on both fields, namely internal and external. From there, you can begin to actually build a meaningful model, not just a taxonomy, and certainly not just a classification system, of cognitive functions, because we that's what agency is and does. And so the only thing that's lacking then is a prime directive, which can be about making expectations and realities conform. That's what everybody's driven to do. Right now, if you're sad or something, it's because your expectation and your reality differ from each other.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So I agree with you. And in general, that's what I'm trying to do with my system. I see that's what you're trying to do with your system. I've looked over your system for a couple minutes, and I see, okay, clearly that's what...
Listen, exactly. That's what I could tell when you didn't know about the valuing thing. You've looked over my system for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, no, I haven't looked over your
system. Intuited the rest of it.
Right.
I want to have a conversation with you first because I want to come to the realization through like other means. So I should look at your system more for sure.
That's fine. No, you shouldn't have. You're just being an ENTP.
It's all right. I've barely looked at a system myself.
Being an ENTP means biting off all the time, more than we can chew, and usually discovering we can chew it. Here, this is large meal. I gotta smoke this cigarette. What time's our next one, Spacey?
5.
Oh, we got time.
Yeah.
What time did this one start? I forget.
3:30.
Okay, cool.
One of the things about the dichotomy, the Riemann dichotomies and all the other dichotomies for that matter, is they're based off of valued functions, which is a different.
I mean, I've looked at them myself before. I went through Socionics. I ended up not really liking what I saw.
Yeah, I think Socionics is a poor model until you incorporate Socionics Model B, which Socionics Model B is not common. So
I never hear anyone talk about Model B, to be honest with you. It's either A or G.
Yeah, because Socionics Model B is pretty rare.
What's the actual difference between like A and B?
So Socionics B uses A system and doesn't derive from it too much. It introduces the concept of a positive and wow, those are T's.
Doesn't Model G also introduce that?
No, Model G is energy flow. Model B is positive and negative on each function. So instead of you saying that
I've seen the positive and negative signs used in Model G as well. It may be a recent addition, but
the Model G might also use Model B stuff.
Right.
But
maybe. Well, I think you may have a slightly different application of it. It may not mean exactly the same things. I don't know, but
well, the positive and negative mean the same thing. It's just the Model G is energy flow, and whether you have energy flowing in, energy flowing out, it tries to say that extroverted and introvertedness have different ways of recharging, and a couple of other things.
No, my general understanding of that was that like the negative manifestation of a function was like there's like something you're avoiding, sort of. Whereas the positive manifestation is like kind of there's something that you're going after.
No. So if you have let's take for instance TI because it's the main between the three of us. It's the main thing that we use. If you have positive TI, that is paired up with negative TE, and that's all that's saying is that you use logic. You use facts to reinforce logic. That's literally what that would mean, and all of them are the same thing. You use the secondary function as a way to augment your primary function, and so Eric and all of us, because we're in the same quadrant, we would use, assuming that I'm an ENTP as well, we would use positive NE and negative NI as our primary tool, and it's just information is espousing constantly, and we're constantly having new ideas that we filter through with our negative NI. Negative NI is more or less pulling the singular from many. That's kind of how you explain it. That's the same way you explain it.
It seems to me that it could just also be explained by, I'm first slot TI, right? I ignore TE, meaning that normally I just give people the logic, right? And then if they demand facts and bring my attention to it, then I'll be like, okay, fine, here's facts that support it. Are you happy now? Like,
yeah, so like that's kind of normally I would say you probably give them the logic, and you don't give them the facts because the facts are subservient to the logic, And then the other side of that, positive TI, negative TI are married together in the system. The other side of that would be positive TE, negative TI, and that would tell them how to do it exactly. If someone wants you to say, this is how you do this, this, and this, and this,
So wait a second.
Okay, but is this describing how they play out, or is it describing something inherent to the function?
What we're talking about now is describing how they play out, and the functions inherently are tied together.
Okay, so it's a descriptive taxonomy. It's not. It doesn't link to mechanics.
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
Okay, well, it's fine. Whatever that is fine. It's fine for whatever it is. If it provides information, that's great. It's going to probably lead you astray in typing people because it relies on correlates rather than process.
No, that's the whole point. Is it doesn't rely on correlation instead of causation. That's the reason. That's literally the first thing I said about the system.
No, it's not causation. No, it's not causation. That's the alternative to correlation. It's process.
Okay.
Process analysis is analyzing the cognitive processes of somebody. So right now you're using TI, regular old TI, which is used all the time to parse. Whether it's used in the affirmative or the negative depends on the circumstances. I can use all kinds of TI arguments, and I'm a TI user. So the point is, you're using TI and you're using it in a negationary fashion. But however, I am not necessarily using it like that. I'm ready to hear things that I think I can affirm, or try to find ways in which I can affirm things that you say that are useful to me. So the thing is, it's a habit. It's not a quality of an ENTP or anything. And the point is,
the negatory factor is not integral to the function itself, and I wouldn't assert that either. Like me doing that occasionally doesn't mean that's what that function is. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, well, how would you type somebody with your system?
I ask you a lot of questions, and I talk to you just the same way you do. Literally, the process is virtually the same. The only difference is that there's some ISFPs and ISFJs would get switched around. Some ESTJs, ESTPs would get switched around. There are some other ones that are more new.
Why would you switch them around?
Because you're identifying their usage of a specific function. That's the definition of that function is set up differently. That's effectively the main reason.
But we've already agreed that you're not analyzing processes. You're finding things that correlate with those processes.
But I'm not, though. You've said that. I'm not saying.
But listen. When I'm looking for FE, I'm looking for somebody who's trying to manage my perceptions. In general, I'm looking for somebody who's aware of small FEQs. I'm looking for a number of different things. And more importantly, if I'm looking for it as a value thing, I'm trying to find where it's located, then I have other kinds of questions I ask. People reveal whether or not they're FE or FI in a number of different ways. Mostly it involves subtextual sort of social stuff within a conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's more like how they approach the conversation in general. But I agree with you.
So then, when you're typing somebody, then hypothetically, you're using the same process analysis thing that I'm using, but you have behind it an unrelated or unlinked model of taxonomy of correlates.
That's what it sounds like.
It's subtly different. It's explaining the system in a way that keeps the logical structure intact. Because if you
but listen, hold on a second there. If you're going to start making those kind of claims, you would have had to successfully critique the logical structure or some problem of mine. Now, you've already acknowledged you haven't really spent much time looking at my structure or model, and you haven't rebutted anything specifically that I've said heretofore. So it's not reasonable for any of us to assume that there are logical problems in my model until you establish that.
If you would like to have this conversation, I'm happy to have the conversation with you. In fact, I've said such in your chat, and I will present my model to you in the form that I have it right now.
But
and I'll read your model.
Hold on, that's not what I said.
Now, I know it's not what you said, but
I said if you really wanted to argue from the position that my model needs to be fixed, before you present your fix, you need to establish the breakage point that you're fixing, right? So you're going to have to negate first.
We're not trying to fix if you'd like me to. If you'd like me to, I can do that. I can go through your model and see what I disagree with.
I don't want you to.
Where you're
I'm not asking you to.
No, you came in here.
I'm saying we're not going to argue from a position that assumes there's a breakage that you haven't established.
Oh, no, I don't. That's fine. Yeah, that's totally fine.
Just that you came in here saying there was something that needed to be fixed about it. So, but then you said you hadn't actually looked at it.
I have a different system.
Okay, listen, I do the same thing. Okay, I've learned to argue.
I very clearly did not say that.
Hold on. I do the same thing, but this is how you have to say that stuff. And unfortunately, in this circumstance, you can't really pull this line of reasoning off. But the argumentation is basically this. You establish where this other model disagrees with mine, the other model's wrong. You make that claim, okay? Now, that way you don't have to say the other model's wrong or right. You say, well, if you're insistent on me arguing about this other model, point to the aspect of the other model that disagrees with mine. Put the burden on the other person in that fashion. Unfortunately, in this circumstance, you can't really do that.
Yeah, we don't have enough time to establish that, so I didn't establish that.
You're not responding to what I said again. Non-responsiveness is a bad habit.
I am responding to exactly what you said.
The hell you are.
You literally just said you were not establishing the problems with my model, and therefore you can't use that argument. I'm saying I didn't establish the problems with your model because we don't have enough time to go over that. So yes, I agree with you. I'm not doing that. I'm not actually trying to do that.
That was the thing I said before the last thing I said. I don't even remember what the last thing I said was, though, so it's hard for me to correct myself.
Okay, we don't have to keep doing this, though.
You're obviously an NTP.
You're totally an NTP, yeah.
This is
totally.
This is why NTPs don't normally hang out together.
Right.
There's too much alpha battle thing going on, or whatever. Both parties want to be oppositional, or I don't know. I
enjoy having these conversations, and like I said, there wasn't enough time, and I didn't send you my model. I didn't read over yours, so there's no reason to have that conversation.
Yeah, look, that's fine. Yeah. What I would suggest is, to the extent that you want to have a more clear understanding of either cognitive functions as they actually are, or the thing you want to attack, either way, pay attention to the mechanics of what I'm saying, and the fact that it's not focusing at all on taxonomy, describable behavioral things like that.
Yeah.
Because that's where we get led astray. All right, we're going to have to wrap this up because we got another one coming up, and we need a little bit of a break between them.
Of course, yeah. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to you guys.
Hey, and thank you.
It was absolutely our pleasure. And I have confidence that you will find your groove in YouTube. You just have to allow yourself to continue to do it without a lot of positive feedback. I did it for a long time before I got really any subscribers or anybody watching or whatever. So I don't know what your numbers are like now, but
I haven't really started. Okay. So they're at 0.
You just got to allow yourself to use it as a means to exercise your being rather than as anything else. And then to the extent you're able to do that, you can talk about whatever you want to talk about, right? In other words, shit you need to get out. And then eventually you'll realize a lot of things about yourself as you're doing it. You'll start to watch yourself. You'll get feedback from people. You'll interact with them. You'll learn to interact in ways where people like you a lot. I mean, they may already, but you don't even know that. But they'll be telling you that in comments and shit here. You start to believe it. It's a whole different experience in life when you get enough socialization and enough affirmation as an EHP. You become an entirely different person, an entirely better person, an entirely more whole person, and more content and more satisfied. You'll still be not content and satisfied, but you'll be happily not content and satisfied rather than unhappily so.
For sure, it'll be a driving force.
Yeah. So, all right, thanks a lot.
Oh, also feel free to come in the raw rooms. You were in them before, so.
And expect this to go on Tuesday.
Yeah, this is the first day ever. Say that again?
Also, this will go up on Tuesday.